In the year 1532, an empire larger than any in Europe stood proud in the spine of South America. It had no money, no iron, and no written language, yet it commanded over 10 million people. It built roads across mountains, suspended bridges over ravines, and temples plated in solid gold. But within just one generation, it would all come crashing down at the hands of 168 foreign invaders, armed with steel, gunpowder, horses, and ambition. This is not just the story of conquest. It is the story of betrayal, disease, civil war, and an empire that, even in its fall, refused to die quietly. This is the fall of the Inca Empire. Before we witness the fall, we must understand the peak. The Inca Empire, known to its people as Tawantinsuyu, the land of four quarters, was not just the largest empire in the Americas. It was a civilization sculpted into the very bones of the earth. At its height in the early 16th century, Tawantinsuyu stretched over 2,500 miles from modern-day Colombia in the north to central Chile in the south, encompassing deserts, jungles, snow-capped peaks, and everything in between. And yet, it functioned as a single, unified system, without the tools that powered the great civilizations of the Old World. There were no wheels, no written script, no coin-based economy. But there was purpose, precision, and a staggering command of human labor and natural geography. At the center of this empire stood the Sapa Inca, the only Inca, not just a king, but a god in human form. He was believed to be the living son of Inti, the sun god. His word was law, his body divine, his presence so sacred that few could speak to him directly or even look him in the eyes. He was both the political ruler and the spiritual axis of an empire that demanded total loyalty in exchange for order, sustenance, and survival. The empire's capital, Cusco, was considered the navel of the world, the physical and spiritual center of Inca life. All roads quite literally led to it. Roads that wound through mountains, cut across ravines, and threaded together thousands of communities like veins in a body. Over 25,000 miles of paved, stone-lined roads, the greatest infrastructure ever built in the pre-Columbian Americas, connected every outpost to the capital with astonishing efficiency. To cross the deep valleys and rivers of the Andes, the Incas engineered suspension bridges, made not from steel, but from braided grass and vines. These were not primitive solutions. They were elegant answers to impossible terrain, rebuilt yearly with community effort and enduring even to this day. Without a writing system, they used quipus, knotted cords made from alpaca or llama wool, to keep detailed records of everything from crop yields and census data to military rosters and tribute owed. These cords were read not with eyes, but with memory, touch, and trained understanding. It was a tactile language, woven into threads. The empire's economy didn't rely on trade or currency, but on reciprocal obligation. Every able-bodied citizen contributed labor to the state, a system known as métier. In return, the state provided food, protection, infrastructure, and spiritual leadership. Land was divided into thirds, one for the gods, one for the Inca, and one for the people. It was a collective society that valued harmony, duty, and order above all else. To the outside observer, it might have seemed alien, but to its citizens, it was balance. A divine empire, stretched across mountains, ruled by the sun itself. It had taken generations to build, but in a matter of years, it would unravel. The first blow came not from a sword, but from disease. In 1525, long before any Spaniard reached Cusco, smallpox arrived via trade routes, brought by the first European contact on the continent's edge. Emperor Huayna Capac caught it and died. So did his heir. The empire was left without leadership. Two sons remained: Atahualpa, who ruled the north from Quito, and Huascar, who held the capital in Cusco. What followed was civil war. For 5 bloody years, the empire tore itself apart. Tens of thousands died in brutal battles. Cities were razed, armies depleted. Atahualpa, a skilled strategist, eventually defeated Huascar. He captured his brother and ordered the death of many Cusco nobles. But while the empire was bleeding, Spanish sails appeared on the horizon. In the year 1532, as the smoke of civil war still hung over the Andes and the Inca Empire reeled from internal wounds, a new threat arrived. not with drums of war, but with curiosity cloaked in steel. Francisco Pizarro, a man born of little fortune but immense ambition, landed quietly on the northern coast of what is now Peru. He was not a king, not a general, and certainly not the leader of a great army. He commanded just 168 Spanish soldiers, 27 horses, and a handful of primitive cannons. A ragged, sun-scorched group of adventurers, mercenaries, and opportunists. But what they lacked in numbers, they carried in lethal advantage, steel weapons, cavalry, unseen in the New World, and above all, the psychological power of the unknown. The Spanish were not immediately seen as enemies. To many of the Andean peoples, they seemed otherworldly, pale-skinned men clad in armor that glinted like mirrors, riding beasts that looked half man, half beast. Some whispered they were messengers of Viracocha, the great creator god. Others believed they were ghosts. And so, no alarm was sounded. No empire-wide mobilization. No war cry from the Sapa Inca. At this moment in history, Atahualpa had just emerged victorious from a brutal civil war against his brother Huascar. He was now the undisputed ruler of Tawantinsuyu, basking in divine authority and military dominance. His armies numbered tens of thousands. His position unshakable. His confidence absolute. When word reached him that a small group of strange foreigners had arrived inland, he did not panic. He did not prepare for war. Instead, he agreed to meet them in the highland town of Cajamarca. To Atahualpa, this was not a confrontation. It was a display, a moment to assert his divine status, to receive tribute, or perhaps to intimidate these foreign visitors. He brought with him a procession of nobles, musicians, dancers, and porters. His personal guard alone numbered in the thousands. His full army, more than 80,000 strong, camped just outside the city. The balance of power was so obscenely in his favor that no danger seemed imaginable. To him, the Spanish were curiosities, maybe emissaries from a distant land, certainly no threat to the glory of Inti's chosen people. After all, how could fewer than 200 exhausted strangers possibly challenge the son of the sun, standing at the head of the greatest empire in the Western Hemisphere? What could go wrong? The Spanish invited Atahualpa to a peaceful meeting in the plaza. He came unarmed, with dancers, musicians, and nobles. He was handed a Bible. He didn't understand it. He tossed it aside. That was the signal. Cannons roared. Horses charged. Steel cut flesh. Thousands were massacred. Atahualpa was captured. The divine emperor, the son of Inti, was now a prisoner in his own land. Atahualpa offered a ransom. He would fill a room 22 feet long and 8 feet high with gold, and 2 more with silver. The Spanish greed ignited. Temples were stripped. Ornaments were melted. Caravans of treasure poured in. And when the room was full, they killed him anyway. Garrote in a small cell. A baptized Inca god murdered by his captors. With Atahualpa gone, Cusco had no protection. The Spanish marched in. They looted the Coricancha, the golden temple of the sun. Gold plates were pried from walls. Sacred mummies were desecrated. The heart of the Inca world was now a colonial outpost. But resistance was rising. In 1536, the puppet ruler Manco Inca, initially installed by the Spanish, had had enough. He escaped and rallied a massive army. Over 100,000 warriors besieged Cusco for 10 months. The Spanish were outnumbered, but had steel, guns, and cavalry. The siege failed. Manco fled to the jungles of Vilcabamba, founding a rebel state. The Inca Empire was gone, but the fight was not over. For nearly 40 years, Vilcabamba stood as the last Inca stronghold. Hidden deep in the cloud forest, it was a symbol of hope and resistance. But in 1572, the Spanish launched one final campaign. Tupac Amaru, the last Sapa Inca, was captured and marched to Cusco. In the same square where his ancestors ruled, he was publicly executed. With his death, the Inca Empire breathed its last. The Inca Empire was shattered. Millions had died, most from disease. Temples were churches. Kings were martyrs. But the Inca were never truly erased. Quechua, the Inca language, is still spoken by millions. Ancient trails are still walked. Their stone cities still stand, defiant in the mountains. Empires fall, but memory endures. The Spanish came for gold, but found glory. The Inca lost an empire, but preserved a legacy. In the story of the Inca fall, we see a clash of worlds, and in its silence, we still hear echoes of power, spirit, and endurance. If this video expanded your understanding, subscribe for more stories like this, and tell us, what if the Inca Empire had never fallen?